She lived in the shadows of a hidden room, forgotten by her own blood. For 30 years, not a single soul spoke her name, until one runaway girl discovered an old notebook and opened a door that should have stayed closed. What she found behind, it will haunt you. Tell us which city you're watching this story from. If you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to subscribe. Hope you love this one. It was raining. Not the poetic kind of rain, but the one that soaks your bones and drowns thoughts in silence. Ethan parked his bicycle beside the ivy-covered wall of the old mansion he was restoring. At 38, his life was comfortable but vacant. No close family, no wild ambition, just wealth and a quiet routine. He preferred it that way, until that day, until her. He felt it before he saw it, a sudden tug at his side, light but unmistakable. He turned, expecting a falling branch or his messenger bag caught on something. Instead, he found a girl. No, older than 14, with soaking wet clothes, tangled hair, and eyes wide, as though she'd seen a ghost. She froze, his wallet halfway out of his coat pocket. Neither moved for a second that stretched far too long. "What do you think you're doing?" Ethan asked, not with anger, but with a calm curiosity that only confused the girl further. She looked at him, then at the wallet and back again, as if unsure whether to run or cry. Her lips trembled. "Sorry," she whispered, dropping the wallet instantly. "I didn't mean to. I don't know why Her voice cracked. Ethan didn't grab her. He didn't shout. He just crouched to her level, picking up the soaked wallet from the pavement. "Are you hungry?" he asked. The girl blinked. "What?" I said. "Are you hungry, or do you just enjoy picking strangers' pockets in the rain?" She hesitated, as if this was the first time someone had asked that question. After a beat, she nodded. Just once. They sat at a nearly empty diner a few blocks away. She barely touched her food, watching the door more than her plate. "Name?" he asked. "Chloe." "Just Chloe?" "That's all I remember." Her eyes flicked up. "You gonna call the cops after this?" "Do I look like I did?" He shrugged. Chloe didn't answer. Her gaze drifted to the steaming plate of eggs and toast. She ate in silence. Ethan studied her. She wasn't just a street kid. There was something else, a guardedness that came not from crime, but fear. "You got somewhere to go?" he asked, her hands stilled. She shook her head, eyes still locked on the toast. "Not anymore." Ethan leaned back. "Then you're coming with me." "What?" "You can stay in the guest house. It's dry and warm." "Why would you do that?" "Because once someone did it for me." He didn't explain further. He didn't need to. Chloe looked at him like he was crazy. And yet, as the rain thundered outside, she followed. Not too close, just enough to keep him in sight and the door within reach. Ethan didn't look back. He didn't want to scare her away. His house, a crumbling estate on the edge of town, seemed to surprise her. "You live here?" "I restore old places. Keeps me from going insane," he said, unlocking the door. Inside was dust, old wood, and silence. Chloe stepped in like someone walking into a museum. "It smells like memory in here," she murmured. That night, Ethan gave her a spare blanket, a small room, and a closed door. No questions, no lectures. As he left, she whispered, "Thank you." He paused. "Don't thank me yet." The words hung in the air longer than intended. Later, he stared at the old photographs on the fireplace, people he never knew, faces, from the family he never asked about. Chloe didn't sleep well. She woke in the middle of the night, heart racing. The house creaked, shadows danced. She walked the hallway and stopped before a portrait in the hallway, a woman with striking features and haunting eyes. Something about her felt familiar, but that was impossible. She turned away. Downstairs, Ethan sat in the dark living room with a glass of whiskey. He heard her steps but didn't speak. Chloe lingered behind the couch. "Is that your family?" she asked, nodding at the portrait. Some of them, he replied. Not all. You don't know them? Not really. She hesitated. That woman, she looks like someone I saw once. I think, in a dream. He turned, eyebrows raised. Dreams are funny that way. Chloe's eyes didn't leave the portrait. What's her name? Evelyn, Ethan said quietly. She died a long time ago. No one talks about her much. Chloe stared at the woman's painted face. Her breath hitched. She looks like my mom. Ethan didn't react at first, but the glass in his hand trembled slightly. Your mom? She died too, Chloe said. Years ago. She never told me anything about our family. Ethan stared into the darkness beyond the window. In the distance, thunder rolled. Well, he said, voice barely above a whisper, maybe it's time someone did. Morning crept into the house like a hesitant visitor. Chloe awoke to the scent of coffee and the sound of distant hammering. She lay there for a while, blinking at the cracked ceiling, unsure if the night before had actually happened. Her fingers curled around the edge of the blanket, softer than anything she had slept in for months. It was real and strange. Downstairs, Ethan was already at work. A piece of molding had fallen off one of the door frames, and he was halfway through repairing it. He didn't hear her approach until she stood quietly in the doorway. You always wake up this early? She asked. Ethan looked up and nodded. The house won't fix itself. She watched him for a moment. Why even fix it? It's just falling apart. Everything falls apart eventually, Ethan said. Doesn't mean it's not worth saving. Chloe didn't reply, but her eyes lingered on the worn walls, the scuffed floor, the old photos resting on dusty mantels. Can I help? She asked. It was barely more than a whisper. He handed her a second brush and nodded toward a piece of wood on the floor. You can strip the old paint off that one. Careful, though. It's older than both of us combined. They worked in silence, comfortable almost, until Chloe asked, Did you know her? Ethan looked over. Evelyn? Not really. She was gone before I was born. Family rumor, mostly. Whispers. What kind of whispers? Chloe pressed, her voice tight with something she couldn't name. Ethan hesitated, then shrugged, that she was trouble, that something happened. My grandfather never talked about her, my mother only once, and that was enough to shut down the conversation forever. Chloe traced a finger over the wood. Grain. Trouble doesn't mean guilty. Ethan smiled, not unkindly. No, it doesn't. But in this family, appearances mattered more than truth. Chloe looked up sharply. Sounds like mine. Ethan turned to her, something flickering in his expression. What do you remember about yours? Chloe hesitated. Not much. My mom was quiet, kept us moving, different shelters, different towns. She never let anyone get too close. She cried a lot when she thought I was asleep. She paused. I asked once about my father. She told me I didn't need to know. That he wasn't important. Her voice broke at the end. Ethan didn't speak for a while. When he finally did, it was soft. Maybe she thought she was protecting you. Chloe snorted. From what? From the truth, Ethan replied. Sometimes that hurts more than not knowing. Chloe looked at him then, truly looked, as if trying to decide if he was like all the others. That afternoon the two of them explored the west wing of the house, the part still untouched by renovation. Chloe was drawn to a locked room at the end of a narrow hallway. What's in there? She asked. Ethan frowned. No idea. The key's been missing for years. Chloe pressed her ear to the door. Feels cold. Later that evening, while Ethan was outside taking a call, Chloe wandered into the old study. The smell of books and dust was overwhelming. She ran her fingers over spines that hadn't been touched in decades. Something about the room felt alive, like it was holding its breath. Behind a stack of ledgers, she found a small notebook, leather-bound, with initials engraved faintly on the cover, EM. She opened it and scanned the pages, dates, observations, and fragments of thoughts. Then, near the middle, a line that made her freeze. She said the child wasn't mine. But I knew from the way she looked at me. Chloe's heartbeat thundered. She flipped to the next page, blank. The next, torn out. Only one note remained. We buried the truth for the family's sake. God help us if it ever comes back. Her hands shook. She didn't know who had written it, but a part of her already feared the answer. She stuffed the notebook under her shirt and ran upstairs, locking her door. On her bed, heart racing, she reread the passage over and over. The name Evelyn, a child, a lie buried. Her mind spun. Was it possible? Could she be? Downstairs, Ethan entered the study, noticing the slight shift in a chair's position. He stared at the shelves, then at the gap in the dust where something had clearly been. He closed his eyes as if bracing himself for a storm. Meanwhile, in her room, Chloe whispered into the silence, "I think I know who I am." The next morning arrived cold and grey, as if the weather itself had taken on the weight of what Chloe had discovered. She didn't sleep. The notebook lay on her nightstand, open to the same page. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the line again. God help us if it ever comes back. But what was it? A secret? A child? Downstairs, Ethan was making tea instead of coffee. A rare habit, usually reserved for the days he felt something was off. Chloe entered the kitchen slowly, her eyes puffy. Ethan noticed but didn't comment. "You sleep okay?" he asked. She gave a one-shoulder shrug. "Define okay." He didn't press further. Instead, he nodded toward the west wing. "I've been thinking about that locked room. You said it felt cold." Chloe nodded, like it was waiting for someone. Ethan stared at his mug. "I don't usually believe in things like that, but lately this house has felt heavier." He set the mug down. "Maybe it's time we open it." Chloe's heart skipped. "You said the key was lost." Ethan smirked. "I said I couldn't find it. Doesn't mean it's gone." He retrieved a small iron box from a closet filled with dozens of keys. "My grandfather labeled nothing. Welcome to the game." Chloe joined him, and together they began trying each key. After half an hour, the 19th key clicked. The door creaked open like something from a forgotten dream. Dust particles danced in the filtered light. Inside was a small bedroom, untouched for decades. A bed neatly made, a porcelain doll on the shelf, and in the corner a rocking chair that moved slightly. "Jesus," Chloe whispered, "it's like a time capsule." Ethan walked in slowly, reverently. "No one's been in here since before I was born." On the dresser, Chloe found a photograph, black and white, slightly faded, a young woman, unmistakably Evelyn, holding a baby wrapped in a soft blanket. Ethan picked it up, his face unreadable. "That's her," he said. "That's Evelyn. And that baby might have been you," Chloe finished. The words hung in the air. For the first time, Ethan didn't reject the idea. He just sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the past. On the back of the photo was a note. "To Evelyn and the child that will never carry our name." Chloe read it 3 times. "They erased her, on purpose." Ethan didn't speak, but she could see the guilt forming like cracks in stone. That evening, while Ethan cooked something rare and terrible-smelling, Chloe returned to the study. She opened the notebook again, flipping further toward the end, more fragmented entries, some scribbled in haste. "They think if they lock the door it'll stop the truth, but doors don't hold ghosts." Suddenly, a memory surfaced. A melody. Her mother used to hum it when she was small, always the same tune, soft, sorrowful. It came back to her now, echoing in the corners of the old house. "That song," Chloe murmured. "It's from here." She ran back to the locked room. Inside, she opened the wardrobe. Among dusty coats and a cracked mirror, she found a jewelry box. Inside was a locket, identical to the one her mother had once worn. She opened it. One side held a picture of Evelyn. The other was empty. Ethan appeared in the doorway. "What is it?" She held up the locket. "My mom had one just like this. She never let me wear it. Said it was a reminder." "Of what?" he asked. Chloe's voice broke. "Of a life she was forced to leave behind." Ethan stepped inside and took the locket carefully. His fingers brushed hers. "We have to find out everything, Chloe. Whatever it is, I owe you that." Chloe nodded, though fear rose in her chest. The closer they got to the truth, the more dangerous it felt. "Someone tried really hard to bury this," she said. "What if they come back for it?" Ethan's face hardened. "Then they'll find we're not afraid." But later that night, as he lay awake, staring at the ceiling, Ethan remembered a story his mother once told about a fire, a baby, and a woman who vanished without a trace. And for the first time in years, he felt something close to fear. It began with a phone. Call Ethan didn't expect. The number was private, the voice unrecognizable, low, slow, deliberate. "You've opened the wrong door, Ethan." Click. Just that. No introduction, no explanation. But enough to make Ethan's blood run cold. He stared at the silent receiver. Long after the call ended, the air in the room thick with invisible eyes. Chloe found him still sitting there, the color drained from his face. "What's wrong?" she asked, her voice sharper than usual. "Wrong number," he lied. But Chloe wasn't a child, not anymore. She didn't press. She simply watched him longer than he realized, as if memorizing every crack in his composure. Later, Ethan decided it was time to talk to his mother. Genevieve lived in a care home just outside the city, sharp-minded but distant, always pretending not to remember things she didn't want to confront. The visit wasn't casual. He brought the photo of Evelyn with the baby and the notebook. Genevieve stared at them for a long time. "Where did you get these?" Her voice was clipped, almost brittle. "In the house," Ethan replied, "in a room you said was never to be opened." She looked at him, then at the photo. "That room should have stayed locked." "Who is the child?" he asked. Genevieve didn't answer. "Was Evelyn the mother?" Still silence. "Was the baby hers and grandfather's?" At that, Genevieve's fingers twitched, just slightly. Ethan leaned forward. "Was that child abandoned, or worse?" Finally she spoke. "I warned him," she whispered. "I warned your grandfather what would happen, but he never listened." Ethan's throat tightened. "So it's true." Genevieve looked at him with eyes colder than stone. "He loved her, but not enough to defy the family. When she got pregnant, he made her disappear." "Disappear?" Ethan repeated. "He forced her out?" Genevieve's jaw clenched. "There was a fire in the old caretaker's house. No one came to help. And after that, Evelyn was never seen again. But there were rumors that she escaped, that she had the child anyway." Ethan leaned back, the air punched out of him. "So what you're saying is, she might have survived." "I'm saying," Genevieve said, standing slowly, "that you should stop digging." Her eyes narrowed. "Some graves are meant to stay untouched." He left without another word. In the car, he clutched the photograph tightly. If Evelyn survived and had the child, and if that child is Chloe. The thought burned deeper than he expected. He wasn't just unraveling, A mystery. He was undoing decades of silence. Back home, Chloe sat in the library. She had found an old newspaper clipping from 1989, an article about the fire. Caretaker's cottage burned. No casualties reported. The article was short, vague, but a sentence near the end made her blood run cold. It is believed. The former maid, Evelyn Moore, had already departed the premises prior to the incident. Moore. She whispered it aloud. Moore. The name was like a key, one her mother had hidden from her all her life. She rushed to the bathroom, where she kept a zippered pouch of old papers, scraps her mother had stuffed in her bag over the years, and there it was. An old hospital record, her mother's full name, Rosa Evelyn Moore. Chloe couldn't breathe. She ran down the stairs just as Ethan entered the front door. Her name was Evelyn Moore, she shouted. She's the Evelyn from the photo. She's my grandmother. My mom was Rosa Evelyn Moore. You knew her, didn't you? Ethan's face crumpled. I think I did, but not the way I should have. They stood there, truths colliding like tectonic plates. Then a sound, sharp, deliberate, glass shattering. Upstairs. They ran. Chloe's room had been torn apart, drawers open, the locket missing, the notebook gone. No! Chloe gasped. No, no, no! Someone was here! Ethan's face turned stone. Stay here, he said, but she grabbed his arm. They're trying to erase her again, like before. But this time, Ethan vowed, they wouldn't. Not if he could help it. The silence in the house wasn't empty. It was charged. Every creak, every gust through the old windows now felt suspicious. Ethan checked every lock, every room, a corner, but whoever had broken in was already gone. No signs of forced entry, no fingerprints, just an absence, a surgical theft. Chloe sat on the floor of her room, knees pulled up to her chest. The locket, the one piece she had that connected her to Evelyn, gone. Her eyes stared at the mess, but her mind was elsewhere. They took everything that mattered, she whispered. Ethan crouched beside her. They didn't take you. She didn't respond, but she didn't pull away either. Later that night, Ethan brought out a small wooden box from his study, one he hadn't opened in over a decade. Inside were old family letters, most yellowed with time. He handed one to Chloe. My grandfather's handwriting. She unfolded it carefully. The date, 1989, just months after the fire. To whoever finds this, if you do, it means the house failed to keep its silence. Evelyn is gone. I told her never to come back. I told her I'd make it all disappear. But if the girl survives, if she finds the house, you must never let her learn the truth. She is the end of our name. Chloe's hands trembled. He wanted to erase us like a stain. Ethan didn't argue. He wasn't a good man, and my mother, she followed him. Out of fear, out of loyalty, I don't know. I want to see where it happened, Chloe said suddenly. The caretaker's cottage, where the fire was. It took an hour to clear the vines. The small building behind the estate was little, more than rubble now, buried under 30 years of dirt and leaves. But the foundation remained, blackened wood, a few pieces of scorched brick. In the corner, an iron bed frame twisted by heat. Chloe crouched near it. I remember a dream, she said quietly. I was small, there was smoke, someone was holding me, running. I could hear her heart racing. She never talked about it, but I think my mother saved me that night. Ethan stood still, unable to speak. In his mind he saw it, Evelyn running through the flames with her daughter in her arms. The family mansion watching in silence. They returned to the house as night fell. As they approached the door, Ethan froze. A figure was sitting on the front steps, a man in a long coat, face half hidden by a hat. Don't be alarmed, he said before they could speak. I'm not here to hurt you. Ethan stepped forward, protective. "Who are you?" The man stood slowly. "My name is Malcolm. I worked for your grandfather. I knew Evelyn. I was there when it all started." Chloe's breath hitched. "You knew her?" "I did," Malcolm said, his eyes softening as he looked at her. "You have her eyes." Ethan didn't relax. "Why are you here now?" "Because I knew someone would come looking, and when I heard someone had opened the west wing," he looked up at the house. "I knew it was time." Chloe stepped closer. "Why did they hate her so much?" Malcolm's expression darkened. "Because she was truth. And this family, they built their empire on the illusion of perfection." He pulled something from his coat, the notebook. "I took it to keep it safe. I knew they'd come back for it." Chloe gasped. "You took it from my room?" "I didn't know who you were at first," he said gently. "But when I saw the locket, I knew." He handed it to her. "You've come for answers, and I can give them to you." Ethan eyed him warily. "Why now?" Malcolm looked at them both. "Because the people who buried Evelyn's story aren't all dead. And if they know she is alive through you," he nodded at Chloe, "they won't stop again." The wind howled. Somewhere in the forest, something moved. And for the first time, Ethan felt the weight of a legacy, not just filled with ghosts, but with predators still watching. The fire crackled in the old stone hearth, casting long shadows across the study. Malcolm stood by the window, scanning the forest beyond. Chloe clutched the notebook tightly in her lap, while Ethan poured tea with hands that barely stopped shaking. The storm outside had arrived fast, as if summoned by the past itself. "Start from the beginning," Ethan said. "We've heard fragments, hints, but we need everything." Malcolm nodded slowly. "Evelyn was 19 when she started here. Your grandfather, Charles, took notice almost immediately. She was bright, kind, and beautiful in a way that made men forget their place." His eyes flicked to Chloe. He didn't take no for an answer. Chloe swallowed hard. "He forced her?" Malcolm hesitated, then nodded. "He was a man of power and habit. When she became pregnant, he told her to disappear, but she refused. She loved that child, said she wouldn't hide her away like a shameful secret. So Charles made the decision for her." Ethan leaned forward. "The fire?" "I was there that night," Malcolm said, voice tightening. "He set it himself, paid off the local fire department to stay quiet. Said Evelyn had already left, but I saw her running into the woods with the baby." Chloe was trembling now. "That baby was my mother." "She survived," Malcolm confirmed. "Changed her name. Lived on the run. I helped when I could. Food, shelter, documents, but eventually she stopped contacting me. I thought they'd caught up to her." Chloe stared at the notebook. "So why did she come back here, even briefly? Why bring me near this place?" Malcolm's expression softened. "Because of what she left behind." He reached into his coat and pulled out a second envelope, aged and fragile. "I wasn't sure when to give this to you, but now." Chloe took the envelope with trembling hands. "On the front, for the one who finds me." She opened it slowly. Inside was a single letter, written in her mother's handwriting, familiar, shaky, emotional. "My darling Chloe, if you're reading this, I've already failed to shield you from the storm I tried to escape. I never wanted you to know this pain, but I couldn't leave the truth buried with me. Your grandmother was Evelyn. She was everything the world hated in women. Strong, honest, and unwilling to kneel. They tried to erase her. They tried to erase me, but they can't. Erase you. You are our reckoning, our voice, our justice." Tears blurred Chloe's vision as she read. Ethan sat beside her silently, placing a hand on her back. "There's more," Malcolm said. "She left behind one last piece. Something Evelyn Hid the night of the fire? He turned to Ethan. It's in the cellar, but getting to it won't be easy. Why not? Ethan asked. Because the door's been sealed. Not just locked, bricked over. Your grandfather didn't want anyone finding it. Ethan stood. Then it's time we dig. That night they descended into the cellar. The air was thick, old, and damp. Malcolm led them to the north wall. And sure enough, a square section had been walled up with different bricks, newer, smoother, a scar on the architecture. Ethan fetched a hammer. It took hours. Dust filled their lungs. Bricks clattered to the floor. But finally, the last one fell. Behind the wall was a hidden alcove, and inside a wooden chest warped by time. Chloe knelt, heart pounding, and lifted the lid. Inside was a bundle of documents wrapped in cloth. Birth records, photos, a necklace identical to her own, and, at the bottom, a small recording tape labeled in fading ink. For her. Chloe looked at Ethan. Do you have something to play it? He nodded. As thunder cracked above them, they brought the tape upstairs. And when Chloe pressed play, the voice that emerged from the speaker made her gasp. It was Evelyn. The sound crackled with age, but Evelyn's voice was unmistakable, clear, calm, heartbreakingly resolute. Chloe sat frozen on the floor, hands clenched around the recorder, as the woman who should have vanished decades ago began to speak across time. If you've found this, then you've found the truth. Or at least the pieces of it. My name is Evelyn Moore. I was once the maid in that house. But I was also something more. I was someone they wanted to erase, because I saw too much, knew too much, and because I refused to stay silent. Ethan leaned forward, staring at the tape as if it were a ghost. Charles took what wasn't his. He thought his money could silence me. He thought fear could erase me. But I ran. I ran with my daughter in my arms. And if she's listening to this, Rosa, my sweet girl, I am so sorry. I never meant for you to carry this alone. Chloe covered her mouth. Her eyes filled. Her mother's name, the confirmation. This was real, all of it. You are not a mistake. You are not there. Shame. You are their consequence. Then the voice shifted. To whoever finds this with her, protect her. They will come for her, because she is proof of everything they buried. My blood runs through her, and my truth too. The tape ended abruptly. Silence roared in the room. No one moved. Chloe sat still for a long moment, then turned to Malcolm. She knew. She knew they'd keep hunting us. He nodded slowly. She prepared as best she could. But she also believed someday, someone would finish what she started. Ethan stood. Then we finish it. We go public, tell the story, show the documents, the letters, the recordings. We burn down this legacy, but this time with light. But Malcolm hesitated. There's one more thing you need to know. Ethan froze. What now? Malcolm pulled a small, folded paper from his coat. This arrived at my door 3 days ago. He handed it over. Ethan unfolded it carefully. The paper was heavy, expensive. A single message typed at its center. You've gone too far, Malcolm. The next one who digs dies. A symbol was stamped at the bottom, a family crest, the Delacroix emblem, his family's name. Ethan's eyes widened. This came from my uncle. Martin, Malcolm confirmed, your grandfather's oldest son, the real puppet master behind all this. Chloe stiffened. I thought he died years ago. Malcolm shook his head. That's what he wanted. He disappeared, changed names, but he's been pulling strings from the shadows. Ethan's voice was flat. And now he knows Chloe's here. Malcolm nodded. Which means you have to act fast before he gets to her. That night, Chloe couldn't sleep. The house creaked louder than usual. The shadows were thicker. But it wasn't fear that kept her awake. It was resolve. She stood in front of the mirror, holding Evelyn's necklace. You were right, she whispered. They buried the truth, but they didn't bury me. In the hallway, Malcolm spoke, quietly to Ethan. Martin won't just threaten. He has people, resources. He's done this before. Ethan's jaw tightened. Let him come. Malcolm shook his head. You don't understand. He won't come at you directly. He'll come through someone you trust. As if on cue, the doorbell rang. 3 chimes, precise, familiar. Ethan frowned. Who the hell? Chloe walked down the stairs just as Ethan opened the door. Standing there was a woman, elegant, cold, calculated. Hello, Ethan, she said. Mother, he whispered, you shouldn't be here. Genevieve stepped. Inside, uninvited. Her eyes swept the room, then landed on Chloe. I see you've met the past, she said, then turned to Ethan. Now let's talk about your future. Let's take it even deeper now with... Genevieve moved through the house, like a ghost that belonged to every wall. She didn't sit. She didn't explain her sudden arrival. She simply stared at Chloe, not with hatred, but something far more dangerous, calculation. You have Evelyn's chin, she said quietly. But Rosa's eyes, the same ones that accused me without ever speaking. Ethan stood between them. Why are you here? Genevieve met his gaze with the calm of someone used to control. Because you've made a mistake, a dangerous one, and I intend to fix it before the entire house of cards comes down. She walked to the fireplace, placing her gloved hand on the mantel, as if remembering something. Do you think you're the first Delacroix to try and make amends? We've been at this dance for decades. I don't care about the family. Name, Ethan snapped. I care about the truth. She smiled sadly. Then you're more naive than I thought. Chloe stepped forward. What did you do to my grandmother? Genevieve's gaze didn't waver. I did what was necessary. She was a threat to the legacy your great-grandfather built. Charles was reckless. He wanted her. Then he panicked when she gave him something real. I told him the child had to go. Chloe's fists clenched. You're a monster. No, Genevieve said, turning to face her. I'm a survivor. Do you know how many enemies this family has made? How many people would kill to tear us down? You think we stayed on top because we told the truth? No, dear. We stayed on top because we buried it. Ethan stepped forward. We're not those people anymore. Genevieve laughed. Not cruelly, but bitterly. Every Delacroix says that until they are. She handed Ethan a folder. This is a cease and desist from Martin. If you try to go public, if you speak Evelyn's name, you'll be buried in lawsuits and scandal. He will ruin you, financially, legally, personally. Ethan didn't even open the folder. Let him try. Genevieve leaned closer, her voice low. He won't stop there. He'll make sure Chloe disappears, just like Evelyn. At those words, Chloe moved, fast, furious. She shoved the folder to the floor, her voice shaking. I'm not Evelyn, I'm not Rosa, and I'm not afraid of your brother. Genevieve stared at her for a long moment, then said something that changed everything. Martin isn't my brother. Silence. Ethan blinked. What? Genevieve exhaled slowly, as if preparing for a final confession. He's my son, Chloe gasped. I had him when I was 17, Genevieve continued. Before Charles, before the mansion. He was born out of wedlock, an embarrassment. So my parents gave him up to a cousin, raised him under a different name, but he came back, found me, blackmailed me into silence, into marriage. Ethan staggered back. You married our grandfather while hiding your own son. Genevieve nodded. I didn't have a choice, and now he holds everything, the family fortune, the documents, the deeds, the name. Chloe stared at her. And you still protect him? No, Genevieve whispered. I fear him. Malcolm stepped from the shadows. Then help us. Tell us where he is. Genevieve didn't speak at first. Then she walked to the window, stared out into the storm and whispered, "Vermont, Blackwood Estate. He built a house there, a mirror of this one. That's where he runs his empire." Chloe's heart pounded. "Then that's where we go." Ethan nodded. "We end it at the source." Genevieve turned, one last plea in her eyes. "You don't know what he's capable of." Ethan looked at Chloe, then at Malcolm. "We're about to find out." Blackwood Estate was tucked deep in the Vermont wilderness, perched like a predator on a ridge overlooking a lake that never seemed to reflect light. As the car climbed the winding road, Chloe stared out the window, her mind a storm of names and images. Evelyn, Rosa, Charles, Martin. Each name another ghost inside her skin, each one a scar. Ethan drove in silence. The closer they got, the tighter his grip on the wheel became. Malcolm sat in the back, one eye on the GPS, the other scanning the rearview mirror. "There's only one road in and out," he said, "which means if he knows we're coming, he's already waiting." "Let him wait," Chloe muttered. "He's been hiding behind silence long enough. It's our turn to speak." The gates appeared suddenly. Black iron twisted into the shape of vines crowned with a golden D, the same crest that had marked the death threats, the same emblem stamped on the family's corruption. They stopped in front of the intercom. Ethan pressed the button. Nothing. He tried again. Silence. Then finally, a crackle of static and a voice that chilled them all. "I wondered how long it would take you." It was Martin. "I see you've brought the girl and the relic," he said. "Malcolm, I expected more subtlety from you." Ethan leaned forward. "We're not here to play games. We want answers." Martin chuckled. "Then come in. Let the grave dig itself." The gates creaked open. The road beyond curved through dense trees until the mansion came into view, an eerie replica of the Delacroix estate. Same architecture, same layout, but darker, sharper, like a painting of the original done in ash. As they stepped out of the car, Chloe couldn't help but whisper, "It's like he built a ghost." Inside, the air was too still. The foyer mirrored Ethan's house exactly, down to the chandelier and the twin staircases. But here, the portraits were of Martin. Martin with politicians, Martin at universities, Martin shaking hands with men whose smiles didn't reach their eyes. Martin appeared at the top of the stairs like a spider descending his web. His hair was grey now, but his presence was sharp, venomous. "Welcome to the truth," he said, "though I suspect it won't be as satisfying as you hoped." Ethan clenched his fists. "You tried to erase a woman's life, her daughter's, her granddaughter's." Martin descended the stairs slowly, deliberately. "I preserved the family, the empire. Do you know what would have happened if Charles had been exposed? If Evelyn had gone public, everything would have collapsed. I did what your mother was too weak to do." Chloe stepped forward. "You burned her life down." Martin turned to her. "You must be Chloe. I see the fire didn't die with Evelyn." She didn't blink. "I'm not here for pleasantries. I'm here for her name," he smirked. "You want the world to know you're the bastard of a bastard." "I want the world to know what you did." Martin's smile vanished. "Careful, girl. You have no idea what I've sacrificed to keep this house standing." Malcolm moved beside Chloe. "Then maybe it's time it falls." Martin turned to Ethan. "And you, always the disappointment. You could have had it all. But you chose to drag our skeletons into daylight." Ethan's voice was cold. "Better daylight than the rot you call tradition." There was silence. Then Martin motioned toward a side door. "Come. You want your truth? I'll show you where it was buried." They followed him down a narrow hallway, into a chamber that hadn't been used in decades. Files lined the walls, boxes upon boxes marked with initials. At the far end, Martin pulled out a locked drawer and placed a single envelope on the table. Evelyn Moore, contingency file. Chloe reached for it, but Martin stopped her. One condition, he said. You leave. All of you. After this, you vanish. No documentaries, no press conferences, no memoirs. You take the truth and you bury it, like we did. Ethan stepped forward. And if we don't? Martin's voice dropped. Then you'll wish you had. Chloe stared at the envelope, the weight of generations inside a thin paper shell. Her mother's pain, her grandmother's silence, her own identity. You think you can scare me? She said. You already stole everything. There's nothing left to take. She grabbed the envelope and the lights went out, a crash, a scream. Then nothing but darkness. The darkness wasn't ordinary. It was absolute. A silence too sharp to be natural followed the power outage. Chloe instinctively backed against the nearest wall. The envelope clutched to her chest. She couldn't see Ethan, couldn't hear Malcolm, but she could hear breathing. Slow, close, not hers. Then a voice whispered, far too near. Run! Chloe didn't think. She bolted down the hall, the cold stone floor echoing under her boots. She heard a scuffle behind her, someone falling, someone cursing, then a crash, metal hitting metal. She didn't stop. The envelope burned against her chest like a flame. She needed light and answers. Ethan had gone the other direction. Disoriented, he called for Chloe once, then remembered Martin's warning, the next one who digs dies. The blackout wasn't an accident, it was a trap. He ran back toward the main hall, searching for something, anything, a lamp, a candle, a weapon. In the chaos, Malcolm had found cover behind a cabinet. He knew this place, knew Martin's paranoia, knew that silence always preceded something worse. He heard movement, careful, trained. Not Martin, not Ethan, someone else, a security team, armed. Martin had planned for this. Back in the archive room, Chloe felt along the wall until her fingers found a doorframe. She slipped through, slammed. It shut behind her and bolted the lock. Darkness still reigned, but she felt space, open space. A storage room. She ripped open the envelope. Inside was a thin dossier. Photos, letters, a DNA test. Her hands shook as she read. Subject, Rosa Evelyn Moore, confirmed biological mother of Chloe Moore. Father, classified, C-Note, 3A, Note 3A. Paternity suppressed at request of Charles Delacroix Sr., child born of forced liaison. All. Records sealed. Tears burned her eyes. But she flipped to the last page, a letter from Evelyn to Rosa. If you ever find this, it means they failed. That you lived, and that your daughter has a future. I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough to protect you both, but maybe she will be. The words hit like thunder. Outside the room, boots approached, muffled voices, male, armed, closer. She slipped the folder under her coat and looked around. A maintenance hatch, half open. She climbed through it, heart pounding. Behind her, the door burst open. She was here, someone shouted. Check the crawl space. Chloe crawled through. The ducts, the metal cold against her skin, every breath loud in her ears. The truth was in her coat, and now they wanted her dead for it. Ethan, meanwhile, had managed to light a fireplace in the grand hall. As the flames caught, he turned to see Genevieve, gun in hand. Mother, he gasped. She didn't raise it yet. Her hands shook. He made me come back, she whispered. Said if I didn't bring you in line, he'd take her. Where is Chloe? Ethan demanded. I don't know. Her voice cracked. He's hunting. Her. You have to run. But Ethan didn't run. He stood. If you want to fix this, he said, stepping closer, then help me stop him. Genevieve looked at the gun, then at the portrait of Charles above the fireplace. It ends tonight, she whispered. Meanwhile, Chloe emerged from the crawl space into the east wing. She found Malcolm, bleeding from a cut on his head, hiding behind an overturned bookshelf. You found it? He asked. She nodded, holding the folder. We need to go now. But Martin was already waiting, at the end of the hallway, with two armed men behind him. He stepped forward. "I warned you." Chloe didn't blink. "Then pull the trigger." Martin raised a hand. The guards did not. Genevieve appeared behind him, gun raised, aiming at her own son. "Put it down, Martin," she said. His eyes narrowed. "You wouldn't." "I would," she said, her voice steady. "I let Charles ruin everything once. I won't let you do it again." Chloe stepped beside her. "You can't silence the dead forever." Martin stared at them, then smiled. But it wasn't victory. It was surrender. "You've inherited their fire," he said. "All of you, so burn." And with that he dropped his gun and walked into the dark. They returned to Ethan's estate by dawn, exhausted, bloodied, and forever changed. The ride back from Blackwood was silent, save for the soft shuffle of Chloe's, fingers flipping through the folder, her mother's story now hers to carry. In the back seat, Malcolm slept sitting up, a bloody bandage over his temple. In the passenger seat, Genevieve stared blankly out the window, her lips pressed into a permanent frown of regret. Ethan drove without speaking. Only when the house came into view, familiar, battered, real, did he finally exhale. "We're home," he murmured, though he wasn't sure if that was still true. Chloe stood on the front lawn, holding Evelyn's necklace and the dossier, staring at the house as if she could see her grandmother inside. "We publish," she said. "No more threats. No more hiding." Ethan nodded. "I know someone, a journalist I trust." Within hours, the house transformed. The kitchen became a war room, scattered with documents, letters, scans. Chloe digitized everything, uploading Evelyn's story piece by piece. Ethan drafted a statement. Malcolm made calls to old friends who owed him favors. Genevieve made tea. A small gesture, but one Ethan understood. It was her surrender, her quiet penance. By nightfall, the truth had left the house and entered the world. It went viral in hours. The headline, "The Forgotten Heir," a legacy of silence, secrets, and survival. Evelyn's voice, digitized and looped with transcripts, became a rallying cry across social media. Hashtags trended, news anchors debated, protesters held vigils outside what remained of the Delacroix legacy. Chloe watched from the stairs, unsure whether to cry or scream. She wasn't just the girl from nowhere anymore. She was the girl who lit the match. Then came the consequences. Lawsuits from every direction. Board members, distant relatives, business partners. They claimed libel, defamation, fabrication. Ethan fielded them all. "Let them come," he said calmly, shredding a cease and desist letter from a Delacroix cousin in Luxembourg. But it wasn't the legal chaos that shook Chloe. It was the letter delivered by courier. No name, just her name typed across the front. Chloe Evelyn Moore. She opened it slowly. Inside, a handwritten note in delicate looping ink. "You think you've won, but this family has roots deeper than you can see. Burn the branches and more will grow. You've exposed a scar, but scars aren't weakness. They're armor." No signature, just a pressed rose, dry, dead, preserved in silence. She handed it to Ethan. "Is it Martin?" Ethan frowned. "No, the handwriting, it's not his. This is older." Malcolm studied the rose. There were others. Not just Charles and Martin. The board, the ones who built the estate. Some of them believed in the purge. They called it cleansing the name. If they're resurfacing, Chloe interrupted, then the legacy's bigger than one man. Ethan looked at her. "We struck the first blow, but the war's not over." Chloe nodded slowly. "Then we prepare for war." That night the house buzzed with new energy. Malcolm scouted digital threats. Ethan hired private security. Chloe wrote and wrote. Her words went viral, not angry, not vengeful, just honest. They tried to burn her story, but ashes still speak. She became the face of a movement she didn't ask for, People reached out, survivors, daughters of silence, sons of shame. Evelyn's name became a symbol, not of pain, but of resilience. And Genevieve, she stayed. She cooked. She listened. One night she found Chloe reading Evelyn's letter again. Quietly she said, "I hated her because I saw myself in her, a girl who didn't know how to stay quiet." Chloe didn't look up, but she whispered, "Then stop hating her. Start becoming her." Genevieve nodded. The next morning the sun rose over a house no longer haunted by silence, but filled with the echoes of a woman who refused to vanish. The invitation arrived on a gold-trimmed envelope, heavy, prestigious, formal. The Delacroix Foundation, under new scrutiny, was hosting a public summit titled Legacy and Truth, Rewriting Our Names. It was damage control, no doubt, a desperate attempt to salvage the family's brand. But at the center of the invite was a name printed in elegant serif, Chloe Evelyn Moore, keynote speaker. She stared at it for hours. Ethan read it over her shoulder. "This is a trap." Malcolm agreed. "They want to own your story before it owns them." But Genevieve, surprisingly, said something different. "You've taken their power," she murmured. "Now take their stage." Chloe didn't respond right away. Instead, she walked the grounds of the estate, hands buried in her coat pockets, Evelyn's necklace cold against her chest. The house behind her was now a sanctuary, but the world beyond it still whispered, still watched. That night, she accepted the invitation. The summit took place in a vast auditorium in Boston, sleek, modern, soulless. As she arrived, media swarmed, cameras, flashbulbs, microphones. "Chloe, are the letters real? Chloe, do you plan to sue the foundation? Chloe, are you seeking financial compensation?" She said nothing. Inside, the room was crowded with legacy donors, corporate figures, and several Delacroix cousins who had never spoken to Ethan before the scandal. They wore polished smiles, but their eyes were walls. The host approached her with a rehearsed warmth. "We're honored you're here. A powerful moment for healing." Chloe smiled politely. "We'll see." When it was time, she walked, alone, to the podium. The lights blinded. The room fell silent. She began softly. "When I was a kid, my mom used to whisper stories to me while we hid in shelters or under bridges. She never told me where we came from. She never used the name Delacroix, but she did talk about fire, about how it can destroy and cleanse." She paused. The room leaned in. "My grandmother, Evelyn Moore, was erased from this family's records because she didn't fit the narrative. She was strong, poor, outspoken, and pregnant with a Delacroix child. My mother," gasps. Cameras clicked faster. "They burned her house, buried her memory, called her shame." She raised the envelope, but she survived, and so did her truth. She opened the folder and read aloud from Evelyn's original testimony, the one buried in the cellar for decades. Her voice never trembled. "They told her to run. She ran. They told her to disappear. She disappeared. But here I am. Proof that silence only delays justice. It doesn't prevent it." She closed the file, then locked eyes with the audience. "This family doesn't need rebranding. It needs reckoning. The Delacroix Foundation can host all the summits it wants, but until it faces the blood on its hands, the ones buried under this legacy, it has no right to speak of truth." A moment of stunned silence followed. Then someone stood and began to clap. Then another and another, until the entire auditorium rose. But not everyone clapped. Near the back, a man in a grey suit remained seated, his face hidden in shadow. When Chloe saw him, her heart skipped. The man didn't move, didn't blink. Then, as the crowd applauded, he stood, not to cheer, but to walk away. Later, backstage, she asked security about him. No badge, no name. Malcolm reviewed the footage. "It's him," he said. "It's Martin, or someone working for him." Chloe looked at the screen. "This isn't over," she whispered. And deep down she knew, beneath the applause, beneath the headlines, beneath her growing fame, the storm was only pausing. The Delacroix roots were still alive, still watching, still waiting. Back at the estate, things didn't feel like a victory. The speech had gone viral. Journalists now called Chloe a revolutionary, a symbol, but her phone buzzed non-stop with messages not of praise, but of warning, anonymous threats, veiled messages, mentions of unfinished stories. One stood out, a message from an unknown number. "You found the fire, now find the ashes." Attached was a photo. The basement of the Delacroix estate, but not the part they'd opened before. This was different, deeper, older, forgotten. Chloe showed Ethan. "We searched everywhere." "No," Ethan said slowly. "We searched the modern estate, but this photo, it's from the original blueprints." Malcolm confirmed it. The foundation beneath the estate included a sealed chamber, predating even Charles's renovations. "It was built during the Prohibition era," he said. "A place to hide things, smuggle or bury." They found the entrance beneath the West Library, under a rug and beneath a loose tile. A narrow staircase led downward. The air was thick, not with dust, but with time. It wasn't just a cellar, it was a vault. Inside were crates, sealed, with wax and stamped with the original Delacroix seal. Chloe opened one. Inside, journals, dozens, some in Evelyn's handwriting, others unfamiliar. Ethan lifted one. "This isn't Evelyn's," he said. "It's Rosa's." Chloe gasped. "My mom." The first page stunned her. "If you're reading this, I didn't make it out. But if Chloe is with you, know this. She is not the last. There is one more. Someone who has waited in silence longer than any of us. Someone who knows everything." The journal gave coordinates, a place in Quebec, an old sanatorium. Chloe's breath caught. Why would she hide this? Malcolm's face went pale. Because if she wrote this, it means she knew. Knew what? Ethan asked. Malcolm looked at Chloe. That Martin wasn't the only one. They read deeper. The sanatorium, long abandoned, once served as a correctional facility for women labeled mentally unstable, especially those who bore children out of wedlock. One patient's record was marked with red ink, E.M., presumed deceased. Evelyn. "She survived the fire," Chloe whispered. "And Rosa ran. But Evelyn..." Ethan spoke slowly. "She was taken, institutionalized, hidden, and never released," Malcolm added. The truth shattered through the silence. They had all assumed Evelyn escaped and vanished. But she hadn't. She'd been locked away, and someone had kept her there. Chloe closed her mother's journal. "I'm going," she said. "If she's still there or if her body is, I have to bring her home." Ethan put a hand on her shoulder. "We go together." Malcolm nodded. "I know a pilot." But in the corner of the vault was one final crate, smaller. Inside, it was a collection of tapes. Not Evelyn's voice, not Rosa's, Martin's, recordings. Dozens. One was labeled "The Night We Broke Her." Chloe stared at it. Her hands shook. "We listen after we find her." Ethan agreed. But in that moment, beneath the house, in the silence between generations, Chloe understood something. Terrifying. This wasn't just about the past. It was still happening, and they had one last name to reclaim. The sanatorium was a ruin of rust and silence. Perched on a windswept hill outside Quebec, its crumbling facade loomed like a tombstone for forgotten lives. Snow clung to the windows, and time had stripped the paint from its bones. But inside, something waited, something neither time nor silence had erased. Chloe, Ethan, and Malcolm stepped through the front doors with only flashlights and Rosa's journal to guide them. Dust curled in the air, the floors moaned under each step, old beds lay twisted in collapsed rooms. Hallways led to nowhere, walls collapsed or bricked shut, but the journal was precise. It gave them a room number, a wing, a date, the East Wing, room 219. They found the hallway blocked by fallen beams. Ethan pried them aside, hand bleeding from rusted nails. Malcolm moved silently, more alert than ever. Chloe led them, her heart louder than her footsteps. Room 219 was sealed. A steel door bolted from the outside. Someone hadn't wanted an escape. They unlatched it. Inside was not what they expected. The room had been maintained, not luxurious, but clean, a narrow bed, a dresser, a small desk. Drawings on the wall, fragile with age, and on the bed sat a woman, old, thin, eyes sharp as broken glass. She looked up as if she'd been waiting her whole life for this moment. "You're late," she said. Chloe froze. You're Evelyn." The woman smiled, slow. "Am I?" Tears stung Chloe's eyes. "I thought you were dead." "I was. The moment he locked me in here," Evelyn whispered. "But I remembered. I remembered Rosa. I remembered her eyes, and I knew she'd never forget me." Ethan knelt slowly. "Who kept you here?" Evelyn looked past him. "You already know." "Martin," Malcolm said. Evelyn nodded. "He came after the fire, said he'd take care of me, said I was unstable, hysterical. He used my grief against me, told the doctors I was violent, dangerous. They made me invisible." Chloe walked slowly to her. "My mother. She thought you were dead. She never stopped looking." Evelyn reached out a trembling hand and touched Chloe's face. "And now I see her again." Tears spilled. Chloe knelt, cradling her. "I'm here now. I'm here to bring you home." But Evelyn's eyes darkened. "You need to understand something. This wasn't just Martin. There are others. He kept records. In a vault. He called it the Root. Everything he did, everything he covered up, it's all there. Names, victims, deals." Ethan's voice was cold. "Where?" "Under his house," Evelyn said. "But it's not just files, there's something else." Chloe's breath caught. "What?" "A name," Evelyn said. "Someone even Martin feared. The one who started it all, who taught him how to disappear women." She whispered it. Chloe froze. Ethan stared. Malcolm swore under his breath. Back in the car after they carefully moved Evelyn, Chloe opened the last tape from Martin, the one labeled "The Night We Broke Her." His voice filled the speakers, cold, arrogant, triumphant. "She thought surviving made her strong. But even fire goes out. I took everything. And when she screamed, I smiled, because power isn't in blood, it's in silence." Click. Evelyn whispered, "Now break the silence." Chloe turned to Ethan. "We go back," she said. "We finish this." They returned to Blackwood in darkness. The house stood as it always had, proud, cold, untouched by the chaos it created. But this time, it wasn't Ethan, Chloe, or Malcolm who knocked at the front door. It was Evelyn. Her steps were slow but deliberate, her frame weak but unshaken. Behind her, Chloe walked with fire in her eyes, Ethan beside her, Malcolm behind. They carried no weapons, only the truth. The doors opened before they touched. The handle. Martin stood there, alone. "You're a ghost," he said softly. Evelyn smiled. "Then be haunted." Inside, no guards, no staff, no pretense. Martin led them in silence to the basement, deeper than before. He opened a steel door concealed behind a false wall. Beyond it, the Root. A chamber of black shelves lined with sealed binders, audio reels, flash drives, names on the spines, codes, photos, Thousands of lives catalogued in silence. Bought, traded, erased. "This is what your legacy rests on," Ethan said. Martin said nothing. Chloe walked slowly through the archive. These are women, children, forgotten not because they were lost, but because someone decided they were inconvenient. Evelyn stopped at one shelf, pulled a single file. "Here," she said, "this is the beginning." The name on the folder wasn't Charles. It was Genevieve. Everyone turned. Genevieve stepped forward slowly from the shadows, her face hollow. "It was me," she said. "I told him what to do. When I was 17, I was pregnant with Martin. My parents erased him, and I learned what silence buys you. So I used it." "You taught Martin," Chloe whispered. "I built him," Genevieve said, tears falling now. "But he went further, darker. I tried to stop it. I failed." Ethan's voice was ragged. "You didn't fail. You turned away." Genevieve looked at Evelyn. "I don't deserve forgiveness." Evelyn said nothing. She walked to the center of the vault. She picked up a canister and poured gasoline. Chloe blinked. "What are you doing?" Evelyn struck a match. The flame hovered between life and obliteration. She turned to them all. "I was kept here for 30 years. I let that silence rot inside me, but it ends now. With light, with fire." Chloe stepped forward. "Let me—" Evelyn handed her the match. Chloe stared at the fire dancing on the wood, then looked at Ethan, at her mother's journal, at Martin, and she dropped it. The fire exploded through the vault. Flames tore through binders. Years of buried names burst into light. Alarms rang. Smoke filled the chamber. They ran, all of them, up the stairs, through the halls, out into the cold. The house burned, not just the building, the name, the silence, the shame. Ethan held Evelyn as she watched the flames. Her eyes didn't weep, her mouth didn't tremble. She just whispered, "They won't forget us now." 3 months later, Chloe stood on a quiet stage in a museum built from the ashes of Blackwood. Photos of Evelyn, of Rosa, of the names they'd uncovered, the women whose lives had once been erased. Behind her, a plaque, the Moore Foundation for the Forgotten Not Delacroix. Moore, a name chosen, a name reclaimed. Ethan stood in the audience, Malcolm beside him, and Evelyn, she smiled from the front row, alive, free, unburied. Sometimes the family we've lost finds its way back to us in the most unexpected ways. What would you have? You'd done if Chloe had picked your pocket. Share your thoughts in the comments and tell us where in the world you're watching from. And if stories like this speak to your heart, don't forget to subscribe. There's more where this came from.